The JaMarr Chase hold-in has officially made it to week 1 of the 2024 NFL season, but it sounds like there may be some progress. Let's break down the latest on the Bengals star receiver.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Welcome back to the everydayers. Appreciate the diehards out there so very much, and all of you who make us your first listen. If you're new to the show, of course, you can join the tens of thousands of Bengals fans out there that make Locked On Bengals part of their Bengals routine. Today's episode is sponsored by Gametime. With the Gametime app, when you create an account and use code LOCKEDONNFL, you will save $20 on your first purchase of tickets. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. JaMarr Chase did not practice on Monday. That means that he officially is holding into the regular season. And if that continues Wednesday, which at this point there's every reason to believe that it would, barring a deal, that puts his week 1 status firmly in jeopardy.
No doubt. It's in jeopardy. It's more than just in jeopardy. We're in JaMarr watch full scale here, and it's physically being ready to go as much as it is getting this contract ready. And look, Monday's practice wasn't some tough practice. It was a short session. It was let's get everybody back in the building after the league mandated 3 days off over the weekend, which was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So the Bengals get back in the building, get guys acclimated, the new practice squad guys get a little time on the field. And then it's Tuesday game plan day. And Wednesday, it's all systems go. Walk through practice, install the game plan, figure out what works, what doesn't. And so the clock is ticking. I know a lot of people think, all right, well, you have 6 days as we record this. It's not 6 days. It's really a couple of days, because if you want JaMarr to play and be JaMarr Chase, you need him out there Wednesday. And there's the deadline. I know people love the Thursday night football storyline from last year with Burrow. Burrow was practicing. Burrow couldn't miss practice because he was coming back from that calf. Not that he would anyways. But with this potential deal, the sooner the better, because JaMarr Chase really, really needs to be on the field on Wednesday if we are going to expect him to be the JaMarr Chase that we expect, which is a Pro Bowl all-star type of receiver.
And Zach Taylor was asked about JaMarr Chase's fitness in his press conference on Monday. Zach said he believes he's in good shape, but couldn't 100% speak with a ton of confidence on that because he hadn't seen JaMarr go through extended practices outside of the 2 practices that he participated in before the hold-in resumed, when we thought this thing was done and the drama was over. Instead, we're back to the drama, and we did get a couple of new pieces of information on Monday from a couple of different pieces of reporting. One of those, Albert Breer, one of those, Ari Mairov on his podcast. Albert Breer wrote in Monday Morning Quarterback that the CeeDee Lamb contract should simplify things for the Bengals and JaMarr Chase, and we've talked about this. It reaffirms that the wide receiver market is what it is. Justin Jefferson's deal is not an outlier. This is what it's going to take to get the JaMarr Chase contract done. I think that JaMarr Chase and many fans have expected this for some time, and that was the purpose of waiting for the Justin Jefferson deal. Chase still wants to make more than Justin Jefferson, as many have pointed out. And the interesting thing from Albert Breer's reporting, James, was that when he was writing about this, he said earlier in the summer he sensed frustration from Cincinnati side, from the team side of things, that JaMarr Chase's camp was moving slowly in terms of responding to the eagerness to negotiate, and that the CeeDee Lamb deal is what needed to happen, he wrote, to break that stalemate.
Yeah, let's start there with the second part. Is it pre-June 3rd when Justin Jefferson agreed to the 4-year, $140 million deal? Because, of course, the Bengals would probably have wanted to get something done before that because they knew that was coming. And I'm sure JaMarr was like, no way. Like, I'm waiting. I know Justin's going to get paid. He's going to set the market. let's let the market get set. And so I assume that would have been the criteria that report is based on. Maybe not. Maybe Albert has more. But what would have changed? JaMarr clearly wants a deal. And so the only thing I could think of is the JaMarr deal. Now, CeeDee Lamb, you're right. 4 years, 136. There we go. Huge upfront bonus that the Bengals would probably have with JaMarr if they're able to get something done. It's there now. Like, we kind of know. And if JaMarr wants to get something done with 2 years left on his deal, that's the one hang up. If he's willing to sign and the Bengals want to sign him, then hopefully they find common ground and can get this done. And that's where my optimism comes from. I keep coming back to this, Jake. Like, the Bengals want JaMarr Chase in stripes for a long time. And JaMarr Chase wants to be in Cincinnati. So why can't they find common ground over the next 48 hours or so he can be on the practice field on Wednesday? That's what I keep coming back to. And maybe I'm just too optimistic, but hopefully they can get something done.
Well, there is good news that has also been reported. This is Ari Myrov on his podcast that we'll get to in a second. I just wanted to comment on one thing, which is that previously when JaMarr Chase has talked about some of the other deals to get done that he may need to wait for before doing his own deal, he not only mentioned Justin Jefferson, but did also refer to CeeDee Lamb. So it could be that they were just waiting for the CeeDee Lamb contract all along. It's possible. We know he was certainly waiting for Justin Jefferson, his former teammate that has a year on him in the NFL. And also a good reminder that Chase has made these business decisions before, sitting out the year before he entered the NFL draft and was still picked 5 overall. That worked out well for him. And so if he feels like he needs to sit out to get his best outcome, he is no stranger to that approach. But I mentioned there are some reasons for optimism as well. This is Ari Myrov's reporting on his podcast. He said that there was significant talks on the Chase extension over the weekend. There was progress. He said they've bridged the gap a little bit, and he has a better feeling that they could get it done. Not that they necessarily will, but also mentioned that if it does get done, it would make him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And you wouldn't necessarily reference that if there wasn't something happening in negotiations that Ari Myrov heard about that indicated that that was the kind of contract they were talking about. And then if the money is already making JaMarr the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, then you could probably surmise that it has to do with structure and it has to do with guarantees and figuring out those aspects of the deal to get it across the finish line and finish bridging the gap that his reporting indicates was bridged a little bit, were his words over the weekend.
Yeah, and it is complex, and they have to work out exactly how it's going. By the way, I don't want it to just be, all right, here's what you want, get it done. I want it to be structured in a way that's team friendly, but also makes JaMarr happy. And these things do take time, but there's been a lot of time that's passed. They've had time to focus on this. They haven't, and by they, I mean JaMarr's side too. I'm not putting this all on the Bengals. Like, it's time to get it done now because it's time to go out and perform. And I get it. You want a deal to get done? Fine. Bengals, you want a deal to get done? Do you want JaMarr Chase? Like, JaMarr, do you want to get paid? All right, let's figure it out. And maybe our everydayers will know this. Maybe they need the mediator. Well, call me in. Let's get it done and figure it out. All right, Jake, hot seat right now before we get to other topics, including Joe Burrow. Does the deal get done this week? Yes or no?
I would say that the trend seems to suggest that yes, it will get done. And I would say that JaMarr's actions may necessitate it getting done. So if I'm on the hot seat, I would say more likely than not is my feel. What do you think?
I feel that way too. And I've been fighting with it all day because, full disclosure, I didn't go to practice today. I also had a really good idea that he wasn't going to suit up for practice today. And so it's like, all right, can you get something done? And ideally, the next time we talk to you, we're talking about an extension, because if they can get that done and get him on the field for Wednesday's walkthrough and install practice, then we could see the real deal JaMarr Chase week 1 against the Patriots, which does matter. I know it's still the Patriots, but it matters. From JaMarr to Joe, let's discuss some of Joe Burrow's comments recently about his performance in camp and how he's feeling. We'll do that coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, it's week 1 and we have something a little different for you. And you got to take advantage of it right now because it's only going to be around for a few more weeks and it's week 1. So you want to take advantage of it now because with FanDuel right now, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's right. Not 1, not 2, but 3 weeks free of NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube from YouTube and YouTube TV. All you have to do is wager $5 with FanDuel. And with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. Every single one. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. So just visit FanDuel.com right now. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook.
As we transition to discuss Joe Burrow and Albert Breer writing about Burrow as an MVP candidate, several analysts picking the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl on the strength of Joe Burrow returning to health in their previous performances when Joe Burrow has been healthy. Worth remembering that Joe Burrow's extension also took place right around this time of year, as did Joe Mixon's, as did, going back into history, Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap. The Bengals no history to getting extensions done this week while we wait for JaMarr Chase, but you're right, James. We transition now to speaking about Joe Burrow and Albert Breer writing a very long piece talking to Burrow back when training camp was in full swing, talking to coaches after that Indianapolis Colts practice when the coaching staff decided that Burrow would not be playing in that final preseason game, even though Burrow did want to. They decided they'd seen all they needed to see. They were comfortable with where Joe Burrow was operating pre-snap, as you would hope a veteran that we hoped would evolve into the Peyton Manning level of mastery pre-snap would be evolving going into his 5th year. And because of those factors, Albert Breer is very bullish on Joe Burrow, saying he could be better than ever. And like I said, like MVP picks kind of stuff. And so based on our observations and your observations over the years, James, where are you at with these sorts of claims and hype going into the season for Joe Burrow?
I think Joe Burrow had a really good camp. I think that, one, it's tough because when Joe Burrow's best practice that maybe he's ever had as a pro, and maybe someday I'll be able to ask him this, but it's sensitive because he got hurt the next day. But is that first practice of camp 2023, and he just looked awesome. And I think there are signs of that throughout this camp. I think he looks explosive like he did. I think he's moving well. I think he's confident in the pocket and confident what he's seeing. I also do think that he's worked through the wrist all camp long and needed those reps, needed the movement in that wrist, arm, hand, all of the above, just to continue to get as close to normal Joe as possible. And is he 100%? You have to ask him. We'll hear from him Wednesday, and he'll be able to discuss that. Did tell Albert that this is the best or strongest his arm has felt. I think that's interesting. We didn't see a ton of deep stuff late in camp, and that could have been just maintenance stuff for some of these receivers as much as it was anything else. The Colts were dropping. I talked to T. Higgins about it. The Colts were dropping in that joint practice, so Joe Burrow just kept taking what was there. Part of it is not having JaMarr Chase, but I haven't seen a ton of deep stuff, and I've posted some of them. I deep ball to Charlie Jones is one I remember. I certainly had the deep ball to T. Higgins in that Tampa Bay game where it was nearly a touchdown. So we've seen him throw it. And so I don't want to make any declarations as far as how he's feeling or how he looks. I think he looks good. But I will say this, my expectations are really high for Joe. And so, like, when people say, oh, well, he should be in the MVP conversation, the Bengals should be among the top teams in the AFC or the #1 seed or win the Super Bowl. Like, I get it because that's where expectations should be. And so I'm not going to debate that. I do think I've seen Joe Burrow practice better in other years or have better sessions. But my expectations are right there with everybody that's thinking New Orleans, that's thinking 1 seed, that's thinking AFC North title, thinking at least 3-1 in the first month of the season. I'm right there with them. So I get the sentiment and the logic.
I think very quickly we'll find out if this will be an MVP-like campaign for Joe Burrow. And part of that is capitalizing on the opponents they have early in the season. And part of that will also come down to game script. If the Bengals don't need Joe Burrow to be 350 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Patriots, the Commanders, and the Panthers in the 3 of those first 4 games of the season, well, that could have some impact on his statistical output, right? And the statistical output will have a pretty significant impact on the MVP race. And obviously, the week 2 game, the head-to-head juxtaposition of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, well, that will probably have a significant influence on the early season thoughts about the shape that Joe Burrow is in and the level at which he will play this season, and will shape narratives early in the season. That's how the NFL media machine works. So how he starts the season, I think, could be pretty telling as to whether or not there's an MVP-like season in the books for him, because of the soft schedule and the ability to seize the narrative around week 2's matchup in Kansas City against Mahomes, who is probably the front runner for MVP this year. Regardless of what sports books have to say about it, you would have a hard time finding many people to bet against Patrick Mahomes most years.
You
That's just
think?
kind of the way it is.
I'll take the field. I know.
Sure, but that's not how it
sure.
works. You pick one person.
I think, and we weren't planning on talking MVP. I think if the Bills are really good,
Sure.
no Diggs, like Josh Allen is that guy.
Yeah, Allen,
Because
Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, like these guys are all names that you'll hear talked about for MVP.
I'm not there for Stroud. I'm not there with Stroud, and I don't think Lamar wins it again. No, I know. I'm just saying. Josh Allen would be the non-Burrow. Heck, maybe JaMarr Chase has 4,000 yards receiving and wins MVP.
4,000. Yeah, I mean that would do it. I think
it would.
The receiver would ever win an MVP.
But if Joe has 8,000 and JaMarr has 4,000, or JaMarr has 4,000 and Joe has 6,000, who wins it?
I can't even begin to wrap my mind around the question you're asking
Just
me
play
right
the
now.
game.
I don't want to. Back onto
Play
the topic of Joe Burrow. I do think that if he is himself, the mental aspect of his game sounds like it's exactly where it needs to be. Judging from comments from like Gus Bradley and Shane Steichen talking to Jimmy Burrow, or overheard by Jimmy Burrow, and then relayed to Albert Breer after that joint practice, that's what impressed the Bengals coaching staff so much. The use of very small things in terms of moving guys around before the snap to get tells as to what he's being presented with defensively. The Colts coaching staff was like, you're the only quarterback in the league that could do this. Essentially is what Shane Steichen said. You're the only quarterback in the league that's making that read pre-snap based on whatever limited information you gathered and the look that we were throwing at you. And so that kind of validation from the opposing defensive coordinator and head coach, in addition to the Bengals coaching staff's observations of Burrow's mastery pre-snap, and the fact that he's able to get the ball where it needs to go, the fact that he feels like those balls that go where he wants them to go but don't quite fly the way he wants them to fly out of his hand are becoming fewer and farther between. I think that is a reason that there's a lot of confidence from Breer's perspective about Burrow, and why if we see that kind of mastery and consistency from Burrow to start the season, we should believe that will continue throughout, because when he was healthy last year, he looked like MVP candidate Joe Burrow. And if he can be that this year and sustain it for an entire year, well, then you're MVP candidate Joe Burrow.
For sure. And we've seen a lot from Joe. We haven't seen that from the jump, and for a bunch of different reasons. But this could be that year. And ultimately, observations are just that. How he's feeling matters more, right? How he's feeling, how confident he is deep down in, all right, I have to, I'm seeing the defense here. I need to throw it here, and I'm going to put it right where I need to put it. Like, as long as he feels like he can do that, then why wouldn't he be able to do it? Right. And because that means that he's done it in practice, repped it enough. And he was really locked in, intense during that final part of training camp. He wasn't doing a ton of interviews anymore. Everything kind of stopped. And we haven't heard from him in a while. So I'm excited to hear from him on Wednesday. But that's where all of those reps, everything that he's done, hopefully it can come in handy. So when he's on the field against the Patriots on Sunday, he feels like week 6 Joe Burrow, not the week 1 Joe that we've seen in past years where he's just kind of trying to get through it because he's battling injury or whatever else that he had gone through prior to that week 1 matchup.
That's right. A fast start would be the goal. They haven't been able to achieve that with Joe Burrow, and it would be, given their schedule this year, necessary, I would say, to a successful 2024. Up next, the Bengals have named their captains for the season. We will talk about who has retained the role, who's new in that role, and Zach Taylor also mentioned a couple of starters for week 1 as some competitions have been decided. We will get to those notes from Monday's presser coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the app you need to get right now because Gametime is going to make you, in the process for you, getting tickets to week 1 or week 2 or week 7 or week 9 this Bengals season that much easier. And they have a new feature called Gametime Picks. And Gametime Picks features out all the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching throughout thousands of tickets looking for the right seats, and other features that are going to be awesome as you download the Gametime app and you'll be able to check out. They have a little switch. You toggle it, you press it. It's all in pricing. You know exactly what that seat is going to cost. There's not going to be hidden fees. All you have to do is toggle on that switch and boom, you see the exact amount that you're going to have to pay and the exact view that you're going to have with panoramic views. These are things that you're not going to get anywhere else. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
This episode of Locked On Bengals is also sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp knows that sometimes as an adult, it is hard to make time to learn new things, new skills. Maybe you've lost your childhood sense of wonder. Maybe you're looking to rediscover that. Maybe you need a new hobby. You need something to learn. They know that kids are always growing and learning, and sometimes as adults, it can be hard to keep that up. Whether it's gardening, a new language, or maybe how to beat your friend in whatever video game you're playing or at the bowling alley, therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder and re-establish the ability to acquire those new skills. It can be helpful for learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, and empower you to be the best version of yourself. So if you're thinking of trying therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. And to get started, it's so easy. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist that fits what you're looking for. And if that fit isn't perfect, you can switch at any time for no additional charge. You can rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp at betterhelp.com/lockedon, where you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Oh, captain, my captain. Jake, we have captains for the 2024 season. 8 of them. 8 feels like a record. 8 captains on the Bengals 53-man roster. And I don't know. Can you remember 8 captains? Let's start there because I was trying to think about it, and that feels like a record for me.
The biggest number that I can remember is 7 a few years ago, where they had 3 offense, 3 defense, and I think Kevin Huber was the special teams punter that year, so that would have been 22.
Yeah. Okay. So 22. They have 3 trench players. 3. 2 offensive linemen. All right, I'll go through them now. Joe Burrow, Ted Karras, Orlando Brown Jr., Sam Hubbard, Von Bell, Jermaine Pratt, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and Evan McPherson. So 3 offense, 3 defense, and 2 special teams. No debate for me. I think all of them make a lot of sense. I think Akeem Davis-Gaither might be the biggest surprise. I don't know about you, but I was not expecting him to necessarily be on this list, but good for him.
It was interesting to hear Zach Taylor talk about the captain voting process. He said there were like 20 guys that were deserving and receiving votes, and it was hard to find a cutoff. He doesn't have a fixed number every year, which is why we got 8 this year, after 6 last year, after 7 the year before. No special teams captains last year and 2 this year. And so there's not a fixed criteria for Zach Taylor, but Akeem Davis-Gaither as a tenured special teams captain who also will be the 3rd linebacker, the first linebacker off the bench. Sure. I don't see any reason that shouldn't be the case. He is the senior. Oh, it was Mike Thomas. That was the special teams captain in 2022. It was not Kevin Huber. My mistake. Just remember that in the middle of talking about Akeem Davis-Gaither as a specialist captain. But keeping with 3 offensive captains, 3 defensive captains, the interesting thing to me was who the new captains were on each side of the ball. Joe Mixon was a Cincinnati Bengals captain from 2021 until 2023. And now that he's not with the team, Orlando Brown has taken over that mantle as a third captain on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, there are 2 changes from last year on a unit that hasn't had a ton of changes in terms of personnel. DJ Reader was a captain in 22 and 23, and Mike Hilton was a captain in 2023 after Von Bell left for Carolina. But with Von Bell's return, he continues his streak. Every year he has been a Cincinnati Bengal. He has been a captain, and Jermaine Pratt takes over the role vacated by DJ Reader's departure for Detroit. And that's how I see those changes. So interesting to see Hilton, the only player still with the team, no longer in a captain role, I believe, after last year with the return of Von Bell. And I'm sure Mike Hilton will still be a leader in that cornerback room as the senior statesman of that group in terms of NFL tenure. But some interesting changes there with some of the leaders on the team leaving, one returning, and then Orlando Brown, I think, was a very obvious fit once that spot opened up to be an eventual captain for this team.
No doubt. I would have made him, we never had the conversation, but one of the favorites to be captain. Yeah. Von Bell, it's so funny because I think you mentioned Mike Thomas, and I think some people thought that he would become like the better Mike Thomas after he signed, where he would be like this backup support role, captain, leader, and he came in right away, hit the ground running, and is clearly they're like a starting safety and a huge part of their defense and what they were hoping from him. I chatted with him. I don't know if I shared this on the pod or not. I might have. So, well, you get to hear it twice, but he lost like 5 pounds this offseason. Not a lot, but he feels like he's moving way better. I think it showed up. He's had a bunch of passes defensed and throughout camp. And so I expect Von Bell to be that dude still. And I know there's a lot of questions about that, but the Bengals clearly confident in him. His teammates clearly confident in him. And so I get all of these guys, really. And in the special teams ones are interesting. I think Evan McPherson just kind of sets the tone in that room. He's weirdly the veteran in that room. Well, when you talk about the specialists in general. And so I think he sets the tone there, and that reverberates throughout the team a bit, and people realize that and voted for him to be captain. The Akeem Davis-Gaither one is interesting because he signed a 1-year deal this offseason, and they clearly value him. He's a big part of what they do. And well, the players on this team clearly do as well. So 2 special teams captains, one on a 1-year deal and the other just signed an extension. So good for both of them.
You know, the most surprising decision to me was Jermaine Pratt winning the vote in respect of his peers and getting that captaincy on the defensive side of the ball. Not Logan Wilson, who many have thought to be the one of the key leaders on this defense, I would say, in recent years. And I don't know where else you would necessarily go with it. Maybe Cam Taylor-Britt, we speculated, could eventually be a captain for this team. BJ Hill's been with the team for a long time and is one of the veteran leaders on the defensive front, where Sam Hubbard is also a captain. But Jermaine Pratt being the guy that emerges there with the votes of his teammates was, I would say, a mild surprise for me, just given the other candidates on that side of the ball.
Sure. No, I think good. Hopefully it means that a big year is in store, right? And I think Jermaine, I've talked about this a lot, both of those linebackers. After last year, when they weren't used to all the chaos around them that was going on around them, whether it was behind them or in front of them, they both need to bounce back. And so they have the confidence in Von Bell. They have the confidence in this entire, I think in this entire defense. And we saw that towards the end of camp, just the swag of this defense, how confident they were playing. Obviously, Geno Stone has earned that trust. The defensive line, I know there's questions about stopping the run. Part of that is on Pratt and Wilson. So, yeah, Pratt, run with that captaincy, man. And hopefully he can have a huge year.
The final notes from Monday between practice and Zach Taylor's presser after practice were that Dax Hill officially will be starting at corner for the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1, and Trent Brown, according to Zach Taylor, gets the nod at right tackle. Amarius Mims missing time with that pec injury ended any conversation for a rookie, it sounds like, of trying to get through practices, trying to get back onto the practice field and being ready for week 1. Just didn't seem like that was in the cards, according to Taylor. So the veteran who will be practicing this week and did practice on Monday, Trent Brown, will start at right tackle, and Dax winning that battle at corner. And Taylor went out of his way to stress that, nobody really lost the battle per se. DJ didn't do anything wrong. DJ Turner will still have packages that he gets on the field for and will be the next guy up if he's needed at corner. But the official answers to those battles that we've kind of known just because of the way the cornerback battle went the last couple of weeks of camp and Amarius Mims' injury were clarified by Zach Taylor on Monday. And in addition to that, Amarius Mims did suit up for practice on Monday, but at best, I would say was limited, did not do the sled work with the rest of the offensive line, but was out there doing some work as he tries to get back from that pec injury. And we'll see how he gets through the week.
Yeah, I don't think Amarius is playing this week. I'll say it. I think he's getting close. I think they'll play it safe. I think that's where they'll leave it. You have guys behind him that got a bunch of reps in camp. I think he'll be active week 2 behind Trent Brown. That's just my prediction. Not sure if it'll ring true or not. And then for the starters, yeah, we expected Trent Brown, I think. And Dax Hill, what a difference a month makes. I mean, going into that preseason game, that Tampa Bay preseason game, everyone kind of crowned DJ Turner, and Dax really snatched that thing, I think. And I'm sure the coaches in the building would agree as well. And both guys are going to play a lot. I think both guys made each other better. And hopefully they all ball out starting on Sunday when they're going to face a pretty, I would say, weak, unknown, not disrespecting your boy Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, these young rookies, but a weaker wide receiver room. You want these defensive backs to kind of thrive in that position on Sunday. So a quick look at one of the things that we'll be watching for, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll get back into that Patriots matchup in much greater depth coming up on Crossover Thursday later this week, and then a game preview to finish up the week on Locked On Bengals. And that passing attack from the New England Patriots is not something that I expect to be the scariest part of this matchup. If you're looking for something to worry about, that is a place where the Bengals should have, I would say, a bit of an advantage this weekend. If you need a second listen, you can check out the twice daily Locked On NFL, because that is going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Until next time, appreciate you listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.